I do love a good success story, and this is just one of those where my viewer successfully fought off TV licensing for 2 years with just this simple sign here. Now, I'll come back to the sign in a moment after the story, and then I'm also going to tell you how that might actually apply legally, because that is, of course, why you watch my channel. Because my name is Daniel Shensmith, I'm a barrister of England and Wales, and I enjoy helping you to understand law on this channel. So my viewer emailed me and told me that they did have a TV license and they did watch TV, or at least their wife at the time did. But she only watched one particular program, watched it regularly, and that was quite literally all they had the TV license for. But life got in the way, she stopped watching the program and therefore fell behind in the story, got a little bit disconnected with it, didn't really want to watch it anymore. And then by the time that she did get the time to watch it, she just didn't feel that she could pick up the story again. By which point the renewal for the TV package came about, and they were once again in this decision process as to whether to pay for the TV license, whether to pay for the TV package, or whether to go for a much cheaper option. Now, as I did many, many years ago, they went with an internet-only option which didn't allow any TV programs at all. So quite obviously they didn't want to pay for the TV license because they were not going to watch or record live TV or watch BBC programs on BBC iPlayer or install any apparatus for that purpose. So they didn't need a TV license. So they decided not to pay for this TV license. But being the forward-thinking viewer that my viewer was, they decided to keep at bay any visiting TV license agent because they were well aware of the tactics of sending out many letters and then agents and coming to knock on the door, trying to sell you, ask you whether you need to pay for a TV license. And so my viewer concocted and put together this rather interesting little sign that he put up on the front door. And it says, "Do not knock. No uninvited or unexpected callers. This is private property. We will not enter into conversation. We will not buy anything at the door, nor change utility companies, donate to charity, listen to religious or political views, participate in surveys. We will close the door. You are on CCTV. You have been warned," it concludes. So my viewer put this on the front door, the clear message to anybody visiting that they were not going to buy anything, not going to discuss anything, and ultimately this amounts to a removal of the implied right of access, which I will come back to just very shortly. But this was a success story because my viewer then did not receive any visit from TV licensing agents for about 2 years. But for the very first time they did visit, because when they cancelled the TV license, obviously TV licensing arranged a visit to the property. Somebody did come out with a zipped up clipboard, you know, one of those folio pad type things. They opened it up, they looked at the sign, and they made a note of something or other. Obviously, my viewer had no idea what, because no conversation was entered into. But nonetheless, it appeared to be TV licensing, and they appeared to jot something down inside this folder notepad type thing. Just before he left, and confirming that it was indeed a TV licensing visiting agent, he put something through the door, a card saying, "We missed you. You might have seen them." And then a few days later, my viewer received a letter to say that TV licensing had acknowledged that he didn't need a TV license and that he'd removed the common law access to the property and that they might check back again in roughly 2 years to see whether things had changed. By which point my viewer's situation had changed and then things had moved on. But not before TV licensing had acknowledged this sign here as a removal of the implied right of access. And just before I come back to the sign in a little bit more detail, let's just go over your rights and obligations via the TV licensing agent visits. Now, whilst the law stipulates that you must have a TV license to watch or record live TV, or watch BBC programs on BBC iPlayer, or install any apparatus for that purpose, what it doesn't do is mandate that you speak to the agent when they visit your property and enter into any conversation at all. The only thing that it does do is if and only if they obtain a warrant for which they would have to apply to the magistrate's court with certain evidence to say that they are likely to find evidence of the commission of the offence of watching or recording live TV without a licence on the premises, and therefore obtain said warrant to visit the premises. If they do manage to obtain a warrant to visit your address and inspect the television receiving apparatus, then you are under a duty to provide reasonable assistance for them inspecting your equipment. But this is really yet to be absolutely fully and conclusively tested in court. Let's say, for example, that they did obtain a warrant to inspect your TV equipment. They visited the property and you let them in because you're providing assistance as reasonably required, such as letting them into the house to execute the warrant. But then let's say that all of your accounts are logged out and they ask you to log in or provide them the password to log into those accounts. This then becomes a balancing act between your right not to self-incriminate, which is not absolute, against your duty to provide any assistance that is reasonably required under Section 366 of the Communications Act 2003 when they are executing the warrant, which is also not absolute. So this then becomes a balancing act. Now, there have been cases that have gone to court on this and several bits of legislation. For example, the Court of Appeal ruled that providing the encryption keys itself was not self-incriminating. It was only the underlying evidence that might be self-incriminating, and that a suitable application to exclude that might be made later. Then, for example, if the police want your PIN or your password, there is a provision under Section 49 of the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act 2000, which gives the police the power to issue a notice to a person that they require that PIN or password. But crucially, that requires an additional step of going to a judge for permission for such a notice. It then becomes a criminal offence to refuse to comply with that notice. However, that notice would not form part of the original warrant executed by TV licensing agents under the Communications Act. So running that scenario through, first of all, assuming that you've let them in with the warrant, because otherwise you might be accused of not providing assistance as reasonably required, you should really show them in and show them where the TV equipment is. But then the question of the balancing act between your right not to self-incriminate as against your duty to provide any assistance as reasonably required. If, for example, your accounts are logged out and you refuse to log them in and you refuse to provide the password, if they really wanted to insist on logging into those accounts, they would need to provide you with a notice to give them the PIN or the password, and for which they would need to go to a judge. And they would need to provide the judge with sufficient evidence that they will find what they are looking for, or they have evidence of some kind of offence which would satisfy their application for a notice under Section 49 of RIPA. But so far as I'm aware, none of these cases have ever gone that far. And speaking of telling people that they have no business spying on what you're doing at home, the same is true for your mobile phone and your laptop online. And that is where a partner for my channel comes in, which is NordVPN. It is the digital equivalent of putting up a sign to say, get out, stay out, and you have no business spying on what I'm doing. And so for those that are not familiar, NordVPN is a virtual private network, meaning you join this network and you are assigned an IP address which no one else can track and trace or spy on what you're doing, including your own ISP, your internet service provider. So whoever you buy your internet from can ordinarily, without a VPN, they can track and trace and monitor what websites you visit, what specific pages you visit and how long you spend on those pages, your search logs, files that you download, and any other kind of browsing from any other unencrypted website. But when you use a VPN, it will encrypt and essentially hide all of this information from everybody that might be spying on you, including your own ISP. And not only that, it will protect you when you're out and about in coffee shops. It will tell you of malicious websites, malicious files that you might download, and it will help to block anyone that is trying to hack your system while you're in a coffee shop on an unprotected Wi-Fi network. Because believe it or not, when you connect to another Wi-Fi and you're out and about, that might well be unsafe. There might be other people sitting just across from you, even looking at you in the coffee shop, trying to access your internet data, for example, when you're connecting to your bank and your computer's sending signals and information back and forth. And as a partner to my channel here, you'll get an exclusive discount at the link below and on screen here. And you can install this on all of your devices, your phone, your iPad, your laptop, even your computer. And they will all be protected by NordVPN, and all of your information and all of your browsing activity will be secured and safe online. And so if you are looking to protect and hide all of your browsing activity and search activity, and you don't want that information sold on to other parties, because that's what they do, they gather all this information, they sell it on, because they know what you're looking at, they know what you're searching for, they know what you're interested in, and you'll get hammered and bombarded with marketing and advertisements from other companies that you'd rather not hear from. So check out NordVPN with the link in the description below. It's a fantastic discount. I use it myself. I paid for it myself. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee if you change your mind, but the peace of mind will be every penny worth it. So check them out, and now back to the video. Now, coming back to the original notice by my viewer and the removal of the implied right of access to the property, I've covered this on previous videos because there is an implied right for anybody to walk up to your front door with bona fide, genuine business, to ring your doorbell, to speak to you. But that implied right, which is not a statutory right, means it's something that can be taken away because it's just a common law right that can be revoked. You can revoke this implied right of access to your property. Now, whilst the legislation provides that you do need the TV license to watch or record live TV, etc., it doesn't provide that they have a right to walk up to your front door unless they have a warrant. And in order to obtain the warrant, they would need sufficient evidence to convince a magistrate or a judge to issue that warrant in the first place. So this original sign used by my viewer is a very broad way of removing that implied right of access for any TV licensing agent, or anybody else for that matter, from coming up to the front door unless so invited. So if you were to draft up a removal of implied right of access and affix it to your front door, or you were to post it to any company that you don't want to visit you anymore, then their implied right has been removed. And so if they visit your property, even to your front door, then they are trespassing on your property. And anything they do or say or find there afterwards could potentially be challenged because they were trespassing on your property. And so unless they have sufficient authorization, for example, a warrant, they should not be visiting your property afterwards. So I'll link another video in the description below where I've talked about the removal of implied right of access before. You can go and watch that to see whether there's anything else I said that I haven't said in this video. But in the meantime, I hope you found that useful. Please do like the video and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.